Hey guys, so today I wanted to talk to you about a subject that was very near and dear to my heart, and that is my second son's birth story and how the Lord saved my son's life. So just a little bit of background. I had a pretty good pregnancy. I didn't really know that anything was wrong. I got put on light duty at work because I had some different kind of pains and everything in my stomach. But other than that, everything was going well. So I was about 8 months pregnant, and it was a late Saturday night, and it was about 11:30 p.m. And I remember telling my husband, babe, I haven't really felt Mason moving, so I'm gonna try to get him moving because this is concerning me a little bit. But I really didn't think anything was seriously wrong, because I usually always kept track of how much he kicked and all that kind of stuff, so I was very cautious of my baby, but I was just we'll see, I'll try to get him moving. I bet I'll start moving. So I looked up all the ways that you can get a baby to move when you haven't felt them move in a while, and I was doing all the things. I was exercising, I was drinking cold water, whatever it tells you to do. I was laying down and waiting to see if I could feel him move, and nothing was working. So about 30 minutes had gone by. So I called the nurse. She was like, okay, I've never really had children before, but this might not be normal, so you need to call your doctor. So I called my doctor, and I could tell that he had just woken up. He was really groggy, and he was like, you need to get to the hospital right away if you don't feel your baby moving, because it had been about maybe just a little bit over an hour. So I'm like, okay. But part of me was oh, everything's fine. My baby's gonna be okay. Maybe Mason's just sleeping really well right now. I really didn't know. I had to work the next day, and so I really didn't want to go to the hospital, but there was something in me that was you need to go to the hospital. So we did, and my husband woke up our 17-month-old at the time, and he was not happy about being woken up that late at night, because now it was about, I think, 12 o'clock or maybe 12:30 that we went to the hospital, and so my son was just not happy. He's like, no, because he got woken up out of his sleep. So we went to the hospital, and we went to the labor and delivery section of the hospital, and they got me checked in and everything, and they asked me what I was there for, and I told them I had not felt my son move in about over an hour. And so they were very calm. They got me checked in, they put me in a room, and I was thinking everything was going to be fine, but I did not know the severity of all what was going on with my son. So I asked the nurses, once I got in my gown, they put the monitor on me to monitor his heart, and I was like, can I go home after everything's okay? Or are you guys going to keep me? They're like, no, you can go home right away. And so I'm like, oh, okay, everything sounds fine. They said I could go home right away once everything's good. But the thing is, the nurses knew that everything was not okay. They said they knew it was not a good situation when I told them what was going on. They said they knew that it was not going to be good. They didn't let that on to me because they didn't want to frighten me. So I was laying there, and they were asking me, are you feeling him kick now? And I was like, no, I haven't felt anything at all. And so they told me that his heart rate was a little bit depressed, and that it wasn't where it should be at, but they still weren't leading on that anything was that wrong. That anything was that bad, I should say. We only been there for a little while, and all of a sudden they're like, we're rushing you back to an emergency C-section. I'd only been there 30 minutes. So I'm like, oh my goodness. So like things went from 0 to 10 quickly. They're like, doctor, your doctor is on his way and we're rushing you back for an emergency C-section. Baby's not really doing very well. And so I was like, oh my goodness. But the thing about it is like, the crazy thing is the Lord had given me so much peace. Like, all I was worried about was that my baby was going to be okay. I wasn't worried about all the things that were happening. And like, it was crazy because I was like, oh my goodness, like I'm going back for a C-section. Like, how am I going to notify my job? I'm like, I need to call my job right now. While they're literally putting the IV in me, they're putting a catheter in me, they're having me do all this stuff. And I'm like, I need to call my job. I need to let them know what's going on. And so I let them know what's going on. And I still needed to, I was on the phone with my job and I still needed to talk to one more person to let them know that I wasn't coming in, and they grabbed my phone and was like, no, your job will be fine. And I was like, okay. So they put the oxygen mask on me and literally they're poking me and doing all this stuff. And they rushed me back to the operating room. And that was the scariest part of it all. So they rushed me back. I mean, literally, it was like a movie scene. Like, they're running me back to the operating room, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, like, this is real. Like, I was not expecting any of this. Like, I had no clue that that was going to happen when I went in to the hospital. And my husband joked with me while we were on our way into the hospital. He's like, you're going to have this baby tonight. I was thinking like, oh, like whatever. No, I'm not. But I ended up having my son that night, and it was one of the scariest times. But God was definitely with me. I was 35 weeks pregnant, mind you. So they rushed me back to the operating room, and they like put me on this really small operating table, and it was really scary because like they're doing all these things like so quickly because they knew the severity of the situation and they had to get him out very quickly. But they put, like, if you've ever seen like pictures of a woman who's had a C-section, sometimes they let you take pictures and they'll put them on Facebook or whatever. Some people would do that. The sheet that goes up over your face, not over your face, but kind of like between you and your stomach, they put that over my face, and that was very scary. They're like, don't put that over your face, you're going to scare her, and that it did scare me. So they took that off of my face, but they put the anesthesia mask on me, and it was the scariest thing ever. They put me to sleep so fast, it felt like I was being put to death. I don't know if any of you that are watching this have ever had a C-section, an emergency C-section before. If you have, let me know if like you experience this as well, like if this is normal, because I don't know if this is normal for people, but it felt like they were putting me to death. And so it was like I didn't know if I was going to wake back up from this, so I was just praying like, Lord, like if I don't wake up back up, just like I want to be with you if I don't wake back up from this, because it was that scary. I started screaming because the medicine just made me feel like I was being put to death. I started screaming, and the nurse was just very reassuring. She's like, you're going to be okay, you're going to be okay. So fast forward to me waking up. So I woke up out of the C-section. I woke up, and I was greeted by my mother, my aunt, and my husband, and the doctor. And so I'll never forget, the doctor was in front of me, and he was explaining everything that was going on, and I was in utter shock. Like, I couldn't believe that my baby boy was not okay. The doctor was like, your son is very, very sick. We don't think he's gonna die, but your baby boy is very sick. And I couldn't believe that there was anything wrong with my baby boy. He was like, now I was 35 weeks pregnant when I had him, and the doctor told me he was 3 pounds and 14 ounces. And I didn't understand, like, why, like, what happened. Like, I thought I had a healthy pregnancy, and they told me that if I had not got to the hospital, when I got to the hospital, my baby boy would have been gone. He was doing that bad. He was on his way out. So I cried, but my husband, he stayed strong. My mother and my aunt, they were all very strong for me. And I was just trusting in the Lord. It hurt extremely bad. I was in shock. I couldn't believe that my baby boy was not doing okay and that he was extremely sick. So my son got transferred to a hospital, to the NICU in another city. And so I was still in the hospital recovering. I couldn't go be with my son because I was at another hospital than he had to go to. And so that was extremely hard, and I cried a lot. And my husband went to go be with our son, who is in the NICU. And we ended up finding out that they had to actually resuscitate him. And it was crazy. I couldn't wrap my mind around everything because even though I was at another hospital, my husband would he would kind of like FaceTime me when the doctors would be in there and have the doctors and nurse practitioner talk to me. And I just remember the nurse practitioner saying, like, your son, there's this problem with his heart, there's this problem with his lung, there's these just all these different problems. He had an acute kidney injury, just all these different things. Like, he could have this problem for the rest of his life. He could deal with this for the rest of his life. And it broke my heart because I felt like I was just blindsided because I had absolutely no clue, and I couldn't see my baby boy. I was away from him, and all these things are saying is wrong with him. His blood sugar levels would spike up, and he had problems with his blood count. Like, he had all these different problems, and it just broke my heart. So then eventually I got to get out of the hospital. I was out of the hospital within 2 days, so I could go be with my son. Even though I had just had a C-section, I wanted to be there, so my family wheeled me around in a wheelchair at the hospital because I was still recovering. But it was just heartbreaking for me and my husband, all that my baby's boy went through. And but the Lord came through. He came through, and he started getting better and better and better. And we were in the NICU for 45 days. It seemed so long, and sometimes it seemed like things would get better, and then they would get worse, and my heart would sink all over again. But all in all, God has done a wonder in my baby boy's life, and we're so grateful that he's here today because the Lord only knows. He only knows. He's an amazing God, and he saved my baby boy's life, and he's doing very well. Now we're still kind of monitoring him. He had a little hiccup and had to go back into the hospital. But he is doing very well, and God is so good. And I just want to say to my mothers, and to those that may not be mothers either, listen to the voice of the Lord. And especially for my mothers, your motherly instincts, listen to those. Don't just shrug them off. God has given you those for a reason. And if I didn't listen to my motherly instincts, my son would not be here today. It'd be an entirely different story. My baby boy would not be with us because he would have been gone. Like, if we didn't go to the hospital when we went to the hospital, my baby boy would have been gone. He wouldn't have been here. So I just want to encourage you to listen to the voice of the Lord. And for those that have gone through similar situations, for my mothers, I would love to hear your stories down below, your encouragement, to encourage other mothers. And just let me know about your experiences. So I pray that this video has blessed you today. Thank you for watching this. God bless.